Welcome back. Today, I want to see if it is possible to make a QR code out of Damascus steel. When we forge weld together, or diffusion bond, two different alloys of steel, then grind and dip them in acid, one of the alloys, 1080, turns black, and the other alloy isn't affected by the acid, 15N20, and stays shiny. Would that be enough contrast to get a functioning QR code? And is it even possible to assemble that many pieces so precisely? QR codes were invented in 1994 by a subsidiary of Toyota to better track stuff in their manufacturing facilities. The reason for that is a QR code can store way more data than a regular barcode. In fact, 200 times more data. All credit for this idea goes to you guys in the comments underneath the welding electrode Damascus video. And shortly after that, Veritasium put out a great video explaining how QR codes work. For our purposes, we need to know that there are different versions that have different numbers of modules. What is a module? It is each of the black and white squares. They are each a module. And a version 1 QR code has 21 by 21. And with every version from there, it goes up 4 modules per side. 25 by 25, 29 by 29, etc., etc., etc. So the more data that you want to store, the more modules you need per axis. And this is all to say, we are going to need an absolute ton of tiny bits of steel. So this is the material that we're starting with. It is 3.2 millimeters thick. We have to make a version 2 QR code, and with a 1 module border, that means we need 27 times 27. No. Now we just need 700 3mm slices. So I had been scheming up some sort of fancy engineered jig we could make, and after thinking about that, I figured actually the easiest thing to do here is just weld these things to some flat bar and just cut through it on here. I don't think I want to cut more than that in one go. Otherwise it risks being too high and not being accurate enough. No! Can't TIG weld it, can I? Okay, going old school. I'm so spoiled with that other TIG torch. Already dulled a blade, we started getting some wonky cuts, so next one on. Brand new blade, and look at the angle it's cutting. And I think that this material has hardened next to this tiny, tiny little bit of weld here, and it's just saying, hey, blade, don't cut here, cut there. This angle is atrocious. We're not cutting dovetails. It's quite worrying. Have I just trashed a brand new blade that is expensive? Ugh, and look at it from the top, no good. Oh my gosh, it's cutting on the again.
You are making a right mess of this, I must say. Aren't these supposed to be straight?
Yes. You are a little late to the party. I'm pretty worried, because we're probably 1/8 of the way through all the cutting that we need to do, and we're already having serious issues. And I'm really hoping that this isn't a dead blade. Take a test slice over here, see if it cuts this square.
That's not square, that's bloody circle.
So clearly, I'm having problems making square things. But you know where I wouldn't have problems making square things, Jamie? I wouldn't have problems on Squarespace, specifically at squarespace.com/forge. You can make yourself a beautiful website, and I actually plan, if we can make this QR code Damascus, to sell slices of the world's first QR code Damascus on my Squarespace website. What I absolutely love about Squarespace is it's very accessible, even for folks like me, to be able to make a beautiful website with their countless drag and drop themes. And on our website, we've already done that, which means if I can get this QR code Damascus to work, it's going to be incredibly easy to add this product to my site, and I'll even be able to do it from my phone. More about them later, but be sure to get a free trial at squarespace.com/forge. Use code FORGE at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. It includes your domain purchase. And on that note, is it square? No, it's not good. So I managed to destroy a blade in 1 cut attempt. This is a good way to spot if it's square. You hear all that noise? That's not good. No bueno. Oh boy. Yeah. Don't be deceived. Most of these are dull. Yeah.
No wonder your saw blades don't cut straight. What are you doing?
I don't know how to do this any better. It's like wrangling a porcupine. Let's see, do we get a straight cut on this steel with a new blade? I think it's better. Yay! It cuts square again. Okay, it was just that we trashed the blade. I don't know how we avoid trashing the blade. I'm just gonna do the same thing that ruined the last blade and put this straight back in the saw. Wish me luck. Please, pretty please, go straight. Yay! It cut. Oh, it's straight. One more 3mm size. I think we might be done for this.
It's a good job you took all the old dodgy ones out of here so you can tell which ones are which.
That's all right, Jamie. I actually have a helper.
Who? Crazy?
Very skilled helper.
Crazy's not going to be able to do that. She's a dog.
Time for the next stack up. Not going to be able to avoid the heat-affected zones here because I prepared this before we learned about the very obvious problems that the harder heat-affected zones can cause. I'm tempted to get a torch on there once this thing is welded to the bar. That is hopefully it for the 15N20. We've got to gather all of this up and make sure that we keep it separate from the 1080. Now, after sleeping on it, I decided that we're going to do this one this way. I think the greatest chance of problem in the sawing is the saw coming down at an angle like this. Stacking them on top of each other to make it more efficient means that we're just going to scrap more parts if it goes wrong. I think we're more likely to get a square cut this way and that way than a square cut this way and that way, especially because of how close these guides are going to be to that block and how rigid these pieces are. I'm going to save this 15N20 swarf for another project down the road, eh? That is a lot of swarf. Rinse off as much as we can with coolant. New blades arrived, for good measure. I'm gonna put a fresh one on. So now we're gonna cut the other alloy, 1080. This will be the dark color in our QR code. So I've sorted the 15N20 pieces from slightly too small to very too big, a little too big, and what we're slightly optimistically calling perfect. What we've got to do with our big pieces is get them to size, and we've got to pick the correct procedure for that. Option 1 is use the Bridgeport mill somehow, and option 2 is use the surface grinder. The thing is, though, I don't know if these things can even Jamie's going to be helping clean the 1080. I don't know if these things will stick. Turn on the mag chuck. Oh, that's pretty good. That's amazing. That's much better than I expected. Looks like we're going to be using the surface grinder. I'm going to build plenty of blocking around the parts so we hopefully don't throw any, and I'll hopefully bring these all to size. Look at that beauty. Woo! And we'll be saving this for a rainy day as well. Delightful. 200 parts on the surface grinder in one go. I'm 2.5 days in to this project, and all I've got to show for it is this. I wonder how expensive each of these pieces is now. So let's find out how many we've got. Zero this. 1,800 grams of 15N20, 8.7 grams. Okay, and 225 plus 234.
459. Each piece would be worth about $4.35.
Ha! If you assume 100 an hour shop rate, that's $4.35 a piece. Good Lord. Wait. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Jamie, I think I've made an oopsie. Do you remember how many pieces I said we needed to make at the beginning of the video?
730.
Right, well, we've got 459.
Your flies I'm done.
Thank you, Jamie. Just what I needed to know. Is 459 smaller than 729?
Yes, 459 is smaller than 729.
Did you just mix up my pieces? I think it was the kerf's fault. The kerf is the material that the bandsaw blade turns into swarf. And relative to the 3mm squares we're cutting, that 1mm kerf is enormous and means that we've wasted at least a third of our material. Now, it does happen to be the case. That was all the material I thought we had in the workshop. But I have hope that we might be able to work around this. Because you see, not all QR codes are created equal. They started with version 1 that has 21 by 21 modules. And then the more data that you want to fit into a QR code, you get 4 extra modules per version, and the more data you want to store in it, the higher the version number of your QR code. Our original plan was for a version 2 QR code with a 1 module border around the edge, making it 27 by 27. So I want to see if we can generate a version 1 QR code. Text too long to fit in QR code. No! Yes! We've got less characters now. Oh, and it works without the HTTPS. Now, this is well explained by Veritassim in his video, but QR codes have the ability to have error correction built in. And I have the ability to adjust how much, and we can stay within the character limit. I say more error correction, more better. Future Alec here. I totally messed up. In order to get a URL shortener for this QR code, I used a URL shortener, but I could have just found a short domain that was available and purchased it on Squarespace. And it would have then cost me less per year than the URL shortener costs us per month. That is the digital representation of what happens when I forget what tools I have in the workshop and how I can use those tools to get a job done. I should have just bought a short domain through Squarespace. So I printed out the new QR code. And in order to stack these pieces up, we need a suitable box, and that's what all of these bits of plate are for, 10 millimeters. I've surface ground them all up this morning. We're gonna start with just 3 sides like this, and in order to hopefully better support it, this is chunkier material than I've ever used for a box like this. And now I think we've got to start stacking. Maybe I should color the ends of this so that I can check the work as I go. Right. This is absolutely nuts. I just finished my second last row. There are 3 remaining white modules. We've barely got any dark left, and this is all we got left of the light. We could not be cutting this any closer. 1 white, 2 dark, 1 white, 2 dark. The last light. Oh my goodness. And now we need 7 dark. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Oh, 5. That is an utter joke. I'm 2 pieces away. Let's see what we got. Scrap. I'm gonna break 2 of these off and we should be good. Boom. There we go. That is stacked. Question is, does it scan now? I will lose my mind if it does. No, it doesn't scan. Okay, but there's still hope that it scans when it's done. Now we gotta get this thing clamped up real tight and MIG welded. And I'm also gonna cut off all the extra little bits. So I want our starting point to be very square. Have a look at what I found outside the workshop this morning. We got a new welder. Gosh, he's a monster. Whoa! All right, so I bought this welder 4 years ago when I came back from America. Does MIG, TIG, and stick. And what's pretty cool is the first ever MIG welder I bought, now 11 years ago, was also an Artec welder, and they have very kindly given me this upgrade with some fancy controls. Look at that thing. So while I get the new one set up, considering the old one still works perfectly, I think we should find somebody that could do with a MIG welder to give it to. Kablam! Kaboo! Well, look at that. That was pretty easy. We've got ourselves a form. Folks can upload files. I'm bloody loving the AI tools on Squarespace. They are pretty nuts. We've also used Squarespace's AI tools to begin the product description for the QR code Damascus slices that I am hoping to sell. Not only can it help you write descriptions, Squarespace's Blueprint AI can help you build out the entire website. You can pick a tone, select what type of pages you want, easily find the fonts that suit you, and then all you gotta do is change the photos, do a little tweaking, and your website is live and good to go. And that's pretty sick. Oh yeah. Damn, that's cool. Look at that. That is sick. Back to it, let's get this boxed up. This enormous block needs to be forge welded. But in order to minimize as much slipping of all those layers and modules as possible, I want to forge it between V-dies. Now, when you saw me do part 3 of the titanium Damascus, I made V-dies for the press out of these machinist V-blocks. And after doing that, I was kindly informed that these things can shatter and explode when they're used in a hydraulic press. And so last week I got to work making new V-dies, and I thought I would forge them. So I took a big old lump of steel, forged it into a square, took it to the milling machine to square it up, cut it on the bandsaw, and that was going to be my top die for the hydraulic press. But when I got to driving that into the 2 blocks of steel I'd prepared for my dies, the result was quite underwhelming. I thought they looked like crap. So I heated up an even bigger bit of steel, and since our steam hammer has officially been hooked up to compressed air, I wailed away on it for a heat, forged it into a rectangle, before finding out that I had used some air hardening steel, having to re-anneal the material in order for it to actually cut in the bandsaw. The cut went wonky, and it was just a bit of a mess. But fortunately, I stopped by the lovely folks at Eastern Steel and bought a beautiful, fabulous pile of offcuts, and I think that there is going to do the job nicely. Now, many of you might be wondering why I'm not making these dies in the mill, and it's because originally I thought that it was going to be much more efficient to cut the dies than mill out an entire V. Now this is turning into such a pickle, possible that milling would have been the most efficient way. Never one to fall for the sunk cost fallacy. I'm going to stick with what we're already working on. Oh! That's painful. I've got a clamp on here to stop it rattling, and I just stood up and put that inside my ear. It's times like this I think I need a bigger hydraulic press. We are really maxing this thing out. Look how hot those dies are getting. There's just so much contact for conduction of heat. I'm just not making enough progress here. Too big, it is not moving enough. I think next heat we go to the steam hammer. Compressor's running, we've got air. Here we go. Oh yeah! Oh no! Oh my goodness! Look at that, how sick is that? The end broke off, you can see the pattern. Oh, I hope they stay straight enough. They do not look perfectly straight and perfectly in line, eh? Very nervous about whether this will work. I talked about error correction earlier, and obviously we went with a 25% error correction QR code on this, but that's designed for like a QR code got scratched or like a little corner ripped off. It's not designed for all the funkiness that can come from forging. I'm gonna take a couple more heats to make sure it's nicely consolidated before we let it cool down and start seeing inside of it. Right, we've got a lot of contrast, but will it scan? Oh my God, it's worked! I don't know if I fully believed that this was going to work, but it's just gone and bloody worked. We have forged a QR code from steel that scans. This is amazing. So now we've got to make sure we get a finishing process that hopefully keeps the thing scanning once it's out of the acid, and then we've got to keep cutting off slices and getting the other bits in the surface grinder so that we can sell them. I left it in coffee overnight. Oh my goodness, it looks good. Oh, it picks it up so quick. Ah! Oh yes, we're getting a lot of success. So all the pieces have been through the gator, and now they're gonna sit overnight in some coffee, and after a little caffeination, they will be ready to ship. And all I gotta do now is change the visibility. Boom, save. It's live on the website with some very glamorous copy, and of course it was made with Squarespace. Now I still have this remnant of the QR code Damascus, and I would love to know what you think I should make from the rest. This is some special and incredibly expensive steel, and I'd love to hear your ideas down below. Now don't forget, no matter what type of business, building yourself a website with Squarespace is the way to go. Drag and drop themes, no coding required. Squarespace scheduling to sell your time and book clients. You can use their member areas to have paywall access content. And as we saw today, use the efficiencies that Squarespace AI can provide you to mean that you can spend more time on the tools, doing what you love, making the products your customers want, and less time on the computer. So please go to squarespace.com/forge, get a free trial, and then code FORGE at checkout will get you 10% off your first purchase, and that includes your domain too. I feel incredibly privileged to have had a little bit of your time today. Thank you. Bye-bye.